Welcome to Now UTOKing, which is a new series of short videos devoted on how to define key terms in the UTOK system. Today, we're talking about the concept of metamodern. This term relates to a particular kind of cultural sensibility that emerged over the last 20 years and in particular has caught fire in the last 5. To understand it, we need to place it in relationship to both modernity and postmodernity. Metamodern is the sensibility that comes after postmodernity, and at its core, it represents a synthesis between modernity's thesis about rationality and science and the postmodern critique in relationship to placing that thesis in society. Now, rather than going forth with that, I want to back up just a sec and analyze the concept of metamodern through the lens of Lene Rachel Anderson's metamodernity. She traces the evolution of the culture-person plane of existence into 4 great epochs. The first is the oral indigenous period. It is fully in swing 50,000 years ago and has characterized us living in bands of 50 to 150 people engaged in hunter-gatherer activities. It's called the oral indigenous period because fundamentally it's structured in relationship to deep relations with nature and each other, engaged in an egalitarian, communal, but also highly autonomous structure. It's before writing and advanced technologies, but it really constitutes an embodied sensibility that demonstrates a degree of harmony and connection with nature and relationships and the ways in which we communicate in our oral indigenous traditions. About 5,000 years ago, we have seen the emergence of a new sensibility called traditionalism. This is the time of the ancient civilizations like the Egyptians and the Sumerians, and the Bronze Age is noted for when we see the emergence of classic religions like the Egyptian concepts around the pharaohs. We see the emergence of things like the pyramids and other great civilization architectures. What we get here is the emergence of writing, advanced complicated tools, agriculture, and hierarchical arranged traditional systems that are defined by institutions. An institution is when a system of justification connects with technology to generate power so that the pharaoh could control the entire system. In addition, we are talking about individuals that are living together in much greater groups than 150, but are tied together through refined worldviews. Writing's on the scene, so now individuals can communicate in refined ways, at least among the elite, and utilize that to build systems of justification that connect people far greater than you'd be able to in an oral indigenous context. The traditional structure is defined by these institutional structures that give rise to power relations, and in addition is defined by traditional refined expertise, and that gives rise to the fundamental worldview that collectively organizes the civilization. About 500 years ago, we see the emergence of modernity. Modernity, particularly as it emerged in the European Enlightenment, is characterized by modern empirical natural science, the Industrial Revolution, things like capitalism, and the belief in reason, science, and progress. Of course, modernity through the Industrial Revolution spreads across the world, and we see the emergence of democratic types of government. We see the emergence of a general world order over the last 500 years, characterized by science, reason, progress. In the last 50 years, we've seen, or beyond, but certainly flourishing in the last 50 years, we've seen the emergence of postmodernity. Postmodernity challenges the idea that we can achieve incremental progress about capital, labor relations, emphasizing power hierarchical differences, and fundamentally at an intellectual level, critiques the argument that you can achieve transcendent truth claims, with the idea basically being that all human knowledge systems are embedded in systems of justification that become fundamentally legitimized by power relations rather than truth relations. So this brings us to the modern period, the meta-modern sensibility. According to Lene Rachel Anderson, the metamodern sensibility can be defined in relationship to appreciating the core aspects of each of these sensibilities, meaning we want to embrace the oral indigenous sensibility in relationship to our embeddedness in nature and the importance of our core contacted relations with each other. The traditional sensibility emphasizes the need to appreciate institutions and some form of hierarchical structure. The modernist sensibility appreciates science, reason, rationality, and capitalism, and the postmodern sensibility emphasizes the context of human justification, the danger of power, and the danger of alienating ourselves from both Mother Nature and from the marginalized populations that are not included in the traditional power structures. We want to embrace all of these from a metamodern sensibility. And to achieve a global sustainable sensibility, the metamodern view is that we need to include and transcend them. UTOK, at its core, is a metamodern sensibility. Indeed, in my book, in 2011, before I knew anything about the term metamodern, I characterize it as a postmodern grand meta-narrative that could include and transcend the sensibilities that came before. In particular, UTOK is positioned to include and transcend the relationship between modernity and its emphasis on scientific rationality and truth claims, and postmodernity and its emphasis on the contextualization of human justification systems in the world pertaining to issues of influence and power. Of course, with justification systems theory, this affords us an insight to the postmodern critique, which is that all human propositional knowledge systems, as they're deployed, will manifest as justification systems tied to issues of investment and influence. That affords us the postmodern critique. But of course, justification systems aren't the only thing, and indeed we can specify by the way they operate through place then in the tree of knowledge system. The tree of knowledge system affords us to accumulate the insights from the natural sciences as transcendent truths and place them in relationship to the human context of justification specified by just. As such, UTOK affords us the way to take the thesis of modernity and truth and science claim, the antithesis that states that all knowledge claims are placed in the context of justification, and place those in an integrative synthesis given by the tree of knowledge and overall UTOK. As such, it is time for us to transform into a meta-modern sensibility.